Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's 2022. It is a new year, and we are back with a new episode of the Ampliverse Book Club. Today, we are discussing this month's book club selection. We read the novel The Meaning of Mariah Carey by the elusive chanteuse Mariah Carey with Michaela Angela Davis. Let me just read the little thing. The global icon, award-winning singer, songwriter, producer, actress, mother, daughter, sister, storyteller, and artist finally tells the unfiltered story of her life in The Meaning of Mariah Carey. So, with you today to discuss this elusive book are your hosts. First off, he is harmony out of the discordant elements of her life. It's me, RJ. Hello. Next up, we have a spiritual force as a musical prodigy, Allie. Hello.
Hi.
A true force. And finally, we have an instant classic of pop diva literature. It's Catherine. Hello, diva.
Hi. I don't know how pop diva, but whatever, it's fine.
We'll take it. Welcome, divas. As we're talking about the meaning of Mariah Carey today, and I want to start off by asking, what is everyone's personal connections to Mariah Carey? Because I think she came to our lives in different ways, different forms. Allie, I want to start with you. How did Mariah Carey come to you?
So I had very little familiarity with the Mariah Carey catalog. Mm-hmm. I knew I knew like Always Be My Baby, and I knew Fantasy because this, you can cut this out, but this is just a funny side story. When my brother was in elementary school, he was in a talent show, and my dad like taped it. And in the talent show, there are these two girls who did a dance to Fantasy by Mariah Carey. But when I was younger, and it took me a long time to realize, I thought that the song was like, she was saying sweet, sweet Madison. Like she was singing to someone named Madison. And even now, like, even though I know it's Fantasy, I'm like, still am like, sweet, sweet Madison, babe. I'm like, who's Madison? And then her duet with Whitney Houston for The Prince of Egypt was a very formative song in my growing up. And so... yeah, which I feel like my lack of familiarity is kind of shocking, given that like all I ever want is for a woman to scream in my face.
Yeah, I was about to say, all Allie does in her free time is watch belting Broadway videos.
Yes. So I was thinking about it because I've been listening to a lot of her, and I feel like, and maybe, you can challenge me on this, but I feel like her belt is not the first tool that she pulls out of the toolbox.
That's true.
And so I think that's why. But yeah. So anyway,
very impressive belt nonetheless. But yeah, you think about like her sultry voice and her whistle notes first, and then it's like, and she can also belt go like crazy. Catherine, how about you? What is Mariah to you?
All I knew about Mariah Carey prior to reading this book was that she loved Christmas and that she sang All I Want for Christmas Is You. I have to be honest, I don't even know that I knew that she wrote it. Like, I knew she sang it, but I don't even know that I knew that she wrote it.
I think that was the biggest thing. I didn't realize, jumping ahead, but I didn't realize she wrote all of her songs.
Such respect. Such respect. All of a sudden, I was like, damn. But I haven't ever had like negative feelings toward Mariah Carey. I just didn't. I wasn't there. I wasn't part of it. And I did love The Prince of Egypt, but I genuinely did not know that was her with Whitney Houston until I read this book. So yeah. Good time.
Because in the actual movie, they sing the pop version and the credits, right? In the movie.
It's a Disney,
what the Disney,
what they do, with the big,
Mariah, so me growing up, she definitely had an impact. I think like the main song that was like in the radio and like the music video was all like happening all the time. I used to watch like music videos all the time because it was like there was a MTV, and then also we had like in the Philippines had a local music channel called Mix that would also just show music videos all the time. And so every day I would always see Heartbreaker, which was her song with Jay-Z. And I was obsessed with that song know that song from top to bottom. And like that was my into Mariah Carey, but also like being Filipino and having to sing karaoke multiple times growing up. We just knew the Mariah catalog because there's such great karaoke songs. And so that was kind of my in. But also, like, she talks about in the book Divas Live 98, the VH1 Divas Live series, like every year they would do it. My dad was obsessed with them because he loves like Carole King, like Aretha, Donna Summer. He loves all those women. So he would like buy the videos every year. So I had Divas Live 98 and I would watch it non-stop. I would watch it every day. It was like, it's Gloria, then Mariah, then Shania, then it was funny because at the time I was like, I don't know who Carole King is. Who is that woman?
I was going to say she did. I felt like I almost felt like it was shade because she lists all the women and then she says Carole King and then in parentheses, of course, because she wrote You Make Me Feel Like, and I was like, yeah, like I wasn't questioning Carole King's presence.
Who is this woman? Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I heard the parentheses in the audiobook.
Oh, really?
I heard them. I just mean you can tell that it was like an aside. She's like, of course, because she wrote. I'm like,
yeah. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Getting into that, Catherine, you famously listened to the books that we read, and we want to know, how was the experience listening to this one specifically? Because both Allie and I read this.
It was great. I mean, I usually enjoy them. So but obviously there were some musical moments throughout.
Yes.
However, I think that when I listen to audiobooks on their normal speed, I get bored. Like it doesn't move fast enough. You're reading too slow. So I can't. I tried, and so I listened to it as I do all audiobooks at 1.4. Mm-hmm. So when she was singing, there was some chipmunk quality.
And the pacing was weird.
To the speed of the song, because the song has a specific tempo. And so, but it was still really great. And I really liked it. And again, it was this moment for me because I never cared anything about Mariah Carey. And I listened to this book and it was kind of intimate, to hear her talking about her life and the way that these moments that I don't even really know about, like I've now looked back at them having read the book. Like as I was listening, I was like, what's glitter? Like, nothing. I did not. Nothing.
TRL moment.
Oh my God. So. Catherine, it's so funny because Allie and I are famously both gay men, so I think we were always familiar with all of these moments. That's so funny. I mean, I think I don't know how it was for you, Allie, but for me, reading it definitely felt and sounded like I was listening to Mariah's voice. Like I feel like it got, because she does have that affectation when you watch her interviews and stuff, and also she adds the darling, like she adds all of those like Mariah-isms, but it's very elevated and sophisticated in a way.
Yeah, I think so. For me, and I'm sure it was different listening to it, but for me, the most Mariah, when I felt like she was her most authentic, was the story that she told about Thanksgiving is canceled. When she was at the restaurant with Tommy, just the whole way that she described it and her internal monologue of what am I supposed to do? Call Mr. Purdue and let him know to stop. I felt of the entire book, because the entire book was very authentic and intimate, but I just felt like in that moment it was 100% she wasn't trying to
be Mariah Carey.
She was just that. That's Mariah. And I think after I read that part, I was like, I wish that there were a little bit more of that, because there were a lot of times when she was like, I use humor as a deflection, and she would say that a lot, but then she wouldn't give an example, And so I was like, I wish that she had included more of those internal monologues or. But
yeah, that's true. I didn't even make that connection. She did bring that up, especially in a lot of her childhood stuff of my way in with the girls was that I was funny or whatever, which that specific Thanksgiving moment was oh, there she is. There's that biting, witty. But yeah, I think she wrote it still in the I am looking back. So it's respectful, but also in the in the what we see Mariah now is like very, sophisticated.
Well, and
heightened.
also you have to, first of all, I loved the darlings. I
Oh,
loved
yeah.
them. But also you have to think about, looking back at a lot of this is probably pretty traumatic, even the stuff
That's true.
that, and so it's like in that lens, for some people, it's more difficult to add the
Yeah.
humor in hindsight. For
true.
others of us, it's like, oh, I can laugh about all that trauma now.
Yeah.
But so I wonder if that plays a part.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into a little bit of that. So the book is structured like, kind of like a, was it 4 acts, 3 acts?
4.
4. And they go through like different major stages of her life, and it starts with her growing up as a biracial child. Like, her mom is Italian, her father is Black, but out of all
Irish.
Oh, Irish, sorry. Her mom is Irish, her father is Black, and all of the children are mixed, but she was definitely the lightest in fair and the lightest in hair too. Like, she had like almost passing blonde hair, and that biracial experience pretty much like spelled out her entire childhood, which I think, like, I don't know, like it was such a deep dive into that experience of being biracial that I was really shocked, and it made a lot of sense to like how her career trajectory also like I think she wouldn't have had that initial career, I feel like, if she wasn't that biracial passing, and Tommy was very focused on like, you're not urban, quote unquote urban, and that was always something that became like a running theme in her life. Like, she was never allowed to express her Blackness because it was very much, from the very beginning, was like, you're not Black enough to even dance for your aunts. So like, that was almost something that she never got to express that until very much after like her career with Tommy, and she was on her own almost. So
I was horrified by the teacher experience. Horrified
yeah.
as a teacher.
Former teacher, I was about to say
like,
yes. Oh.
I'm like, bitch. One of my favorite stories, like one of my very first job teaching, I was teaching in an inner city preschool in Nashville.
Mhm.
And there was this little girl that I freaking loved. And she was just so creative and so like, and she, it was always this thing where the kids would draw or paint or whatever, do their thing. And what we did was say, okay, tell me about this, right?
Yeah.
And then you write it on their picture so that their parents can see how they've expressed this in this, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, tell me about this picture. She was so proud. And she goes, it's a madman with gloves. And I'm like, I just can't picture anyone
saying like, that's
so
wrong.
proud of what they've created and being like, you use the wrong color. Like, bitch, what? I was horrified by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was all it was really shocking and sad to read, but I think one of the things that I respected the most about the book was that she was like, I'm ending the cycle of generational trauma. Like, I'm not going to participate in it. And I think one of the things that she said a lot was like, we just didn't have the language to talk about it. We didn't know how to address it. And so I really appreciated her sharing what must have been really difficult memories to like reflect on that intensely, to share that experience for like biracial kids today, and to be able to be those stories that like, she was like, I didn't, growing up, I didn't have anybody that looked like me, to be able to like now for, kids to be like, point to her and be like, okay, I understand. I get that. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I respect the most. And I'm I don't know how to say this, but I'm glad that she waited for the time to be right to have this conversation, because I think if it had been written like 5 years ago, I think that people wouldn't have taken it as seriously as we do now. Yeah. And so in that respect, I'm glad that she told the story in a period of time where it was going to be heard for what it was.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, that was the thing that I kept thinking about reading it. I'm like, I'm so glad that we as a culture have more, like language, just more understanding than when we used to have about race, and especially when it comes to like interracial families, and like just in general, like how families are set up now, that I was like, I'm glad that we are all smarter, or like have more thought behind, so that we can kind of really understand, and not just like let her experience be like, oh, but she passed, like
Right.
because even
like
if
her siblings.
yeah, because even if she did, like, she still went through like enormous kind of trauma, and yeah, like her siblings, especially, like being able to like having to see like you another person in your family that has completely different experiences than you,
Right.
must be like,
Well, and I just mean like the way that her siblings like basically it was her fault. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they like blamed it on her.
yeah,
And it's like she can't control how she looks any more than you can control how you look. Like you would
yeah,
think that that would lead you to have some level of compassion. But because their dad basically grew up or gained a little bit more emotional intelligence in
mhm.
between their childhood and hers, it was such a rift that they couldn't let it go. I mean, I assume that they associated those things, like,
Yeah.
which is it just anyway. That also was surprising to me that her own siblings like blamed her for her potential passingness, and didn't understand that she was suffering too.
Yeah, I mean, while we're talking about her siblings, let's talk about Pat. Let's talk about the mom. And when I realized that her mother was like a trained operatic diva, I was like, this explains so much about Mariah.
So much.
I literally was like, oh, this explains a lot. And I think like, obviously, when we think of Mariah Carey, we think of the term diva, and even her, like, she's definitely like claimed that in a way. But I feel like deconstructing that word through like learning about her story has really kind of like opened my eyes of like, she literally was like, even as a child singing, and her mother would be like, you sing that wrong, or like that's not good, or even though like, but then like she having the thoughts of like, well, I know I'm actually doing this correctly and I'm singing better than my mother, and then like having to like go through all that idea of like, now I have to be, oh my god, it was just so fascinating, but also like, I would if my mother was an operatic diva, I would not handle it. I would not be able to handle it. So more power to her that she was able to get through that.
Yeah. I'm curious your opinion on, I thought it was interesting because I mean, the book is mostly linear. I think,
Yeah.
there's things here and there that don't.
Yeah, and she brought that up too. She was like, time is relative, whatever.
Mm-hmm. But what I thought was interesting was that she kind of, it was the way that she spoke about her siblings and her mom changed in the book at the time when she was like going to therapy and kind of relearning how to. And I thought it was interesting for her to I guess I'm wondering what it must have been like for her to kind of use that old language in the first part of the book
back.
And to go back and to use that, because there's a part of me that's almost like, oh, I wonder if I would have put it like at the beginning of the book and said, but I understand why she did that. But it was just interesting for me to think about her, writing as if that was still their relationship.
It was like happening. Yeah, I definitely, there was a moment, like there was, growing up when she came out with The Emancipation of Mimi, I was like, oh, that Mariah Carey fully emancipated herself from her family. But then I was like, wait, no, she's a full adult when she came out of this album. So that makes no sense. But I think like, I could tell that like emancipation definitely, she like has taken that word and has really made it as like, it means a lot to her. I think like from letting herself go from Tommy and like Sony, but then also her family. I definitely noticed that shift of like, oh, now she's calling them ex-mother, ex-brother, ex-sister. So yeah, I thought that was interesting too. And I I felt the like hesitation, I feel like, of not wanting to talk about it, because she also kind of brought it up as like, you'll learn more, or like you'll know more why this is weird, or like why this is important. But yeah, it's definitely like a very interesting part of writing about yourself and like memoirs. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that, and having to go
Right.
back to those times?
How do you marry the past with the present?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This is I'm shifting topics again, so I
Go
apologize.
ahead, let's shift.
But what I really, one of the things that I learned about Mariah Carey that I really found interesting and respected was her confidence level.
Yeah.
Like the whole time, she knew when she was struggling, but she never was like, I can't do this, or
Yeah.
can I do this? Like it amazed me when she would say, this was the whole plan. This was the
Yeah.
plan the whole time. This is the only plan there ever was. I was going to be a star, and that's all there is to it, because
Yeah.
that's what I am. I was born that. And I wondered if her mother's attitude maybe was a part of that, like her, when we talk about her mom being the opera singer. But I thought that was really cool, because I feel like a lot of people that have really made it, that are really famous, a lot of them have doubts, a lot of them feel insecure. And I was like, this is nice, like to have somebody that's like, no, I'm not going to be falsely modest. I didn't think that I was going to make it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, because I totally agree with you, but I thought it was interesting how she kind of mirrored it. And she was like, I didn't think that I was allowed to have success in my professional life and in my personal life. Like I thought it was one or the other. So I thought it was really interesting, her kind of talking about that. And I agree, like I really respect her, like the confidence, especially musically, to just be able to say, like, I don't care if you've been in the industry for all these years, like this is what people want to hear now, and this is what we're going to do, I think is.
Yeah, it definitely gave me a huge respect for just like her talent, because I think what led into that confidence is that she truly understood music, like how to build it, not only from like the lyrics, but also like the melodies, and like actually layering it. And when she would talk about like spending time in the studio, I was like, oh wow, like that's insane to think about. Like this woman who I think we only see as like glitzy glamour, like, you know, performing live and like all of that, like she started with just spending like hours at like studios, just like listening to her songs over and over again, and recording and layering and all that stuff, that I was like, I never expected this to be like, I don't know. Like it was just so refreshing to be like, wow, she really knew. Yeah, she really knew her skills and her talent despite. And I think when you are going through like terrible personal trauma, you kind of have to latch on to the things that you know are true or like won't change. So I think that was super important for her to realize that she had the talent, because I think if she didn't, she would have been just as lost as like her siblings, I think. But because she knew that like, this is something I can do that no one else can do, or like, this is something I'm really good at, I just have to keep onto this, because there's literally nothing else around me that I can, you know, latch on to. So
well, and it's like good for her, because so many, I mean, I find myself easily getting discouraged, and like the imposter syndrome takes over when things just slightly go wrong. So it's just impressive to me that she was able to do that, because certainly a lot of things were going wrong.
I know. I mean, let's talk about Glitter. Let's talk about TRL. Like, I think she had to make so many decisions, like with so much pressure to do well, that like, even if she knew it wasn't going well, like she still tried to push through, because it's like, I know this is just part of it, or like this is just a step. And she just kept going. Yeah.
I think we finally had a reckoning with that piece of shit Justin Timberlake with Britney Spears. Okay, we need to have a reckoning with Carson Daly, because
absolutely.
I was like, after reading all of that, because I would have been like, what, 9, and so I remember like this going
something
on,
happened,
but I didn't.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing about like Mariah
was, like,
Carey
12.
stripping, it's like, first of all, no, she's not. And it
Right.
says that
She
on
took
her
her shirt
Wikipedia page. It says that she performed a striptease. I was like, who's editing her Wikipedia page? Because
Yeah.
they're incorrect.
They're not
And so-
lambs.
Tommy
that's for sure.
Mottola. Tommy is.
Yes, Tommy is on her Wikipedia page trying to. And so watching that whole thing, I was like, this is such bullshit because like
Yeah.
she's very clearly trying to do a bit and he's just not
Not
playing
participating.
along.
No.
He is not yes-anding.
No, at all.
And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with Carson Daly. I want to get him off The Voice. Okay.
Let's sign up change.org. Get rid of Carson Daly for
Yes.
what he did to Mariah
What
Carey.
he did to Mariah Carey.
Justice for Mariah.
Yes. I'm like, no, we need to have a reckoning for this because
Well,
yeah.
So, do you guys know? I don't know, and you maybe I don't know if you do or not. Before TRL, so I just need a timeline reminder.
Mhm.
So was all of that stuff where she was like basically institutionalized against her will, essentially?
Oh, yeah.
Was that before the TRL situation and everybody knew it?
no.
Because he said TRL on the video, because I watched the video. On the video, it was like June or July of 2001, and Glitter, I guess the movie was coming out in 10 days when she was released. I don't know. I couldn't figure out the timeline.
I think that goes back to the whole time thing again, because
right.
because even later she talked about like she was bringing up memories about leading up to Glitter. I know that Glitter was 9/11, right?
Well, the album was 9/11. The movie was a little later because she said that the album was released on that same day, and she was in
she got released then.
She was that day, on 9/11. She was released, and then the movie came out. I thought she said 10 days later after she was released. So I guess it was before, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, that would be even more purposeful if that had happened first and then Carson had acted like that, like even more.
Yeah, it was
shitty.
before, because Loverboy was
before.
June. Yeah,
Right.
and she was promoting Loverboy for TRL. So yeah, TRL
Right.
was July. Yeah.
So here I'm on her wiki. So the TRL was July 19th, and then she was hospitalized on July 26th.
Oh, so very, very close together. And I mean, her brother probably used that against her, honestly, when he was like telling people don't let her out. Because she was like, I don't know what he said to them, but then they wouldn't let me leave.
Yeah. That was pretty.
And a mom calling the cops? What the hell?
Okay,
on your kid? Because she's yelling? Because you woke her up from a nap?
I think that she did a really good job of structuring this book as like that moment was truly the culmination of every like kind of microaggressive racial kind of things that she felt in her childhood. It all culminated in that point that like at the end of the day, my mom will use her whiteness as her only kind of like saving thing for herself. That she could at the end of the day, she can always save herself by using her whiteness, even in front of her own kids. That I was like, oh. Ay. Pat. My God.
Pat's a real piece of work.
Pat is a real piece of work.
And she read that letter to Carson for Pat.
I know.
Ay. There was that moment of like in the book, Catherine, I don't know if, but in the book, in the middle, it's like all of the pictures and stuff.
Oh no, I did not.
So some of the pictures that she talk about in the story are in here, and the pictures of Pat, it is really like uncanny of like, oh wow, that is your mother. Like the features, like her eyes and her face. I'm like, yeah, you are your mother's daughter. One of the good things I really loved about Mariah's life is the whole Derek Jeter romance. And I was like swooning. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I was so hyped for Derek Jeter.
I literally Googled I was like, Mariah Carey marriages. Like, I couldn't wait to hear the story.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was like,
me either, yeah.
she was with Derek Jeter?
It was insane. And like the way she was describing him, I was like, this is so hot. You two are both beautiful at your prime. When she was like, he walked in just like sweats. I was like, oh my God.
And then show Catherine the picture of them. It's so cute.
It's so cute.
I saw it and I was like, I want to cry. It's so cute.
Oh my God. I'm going to Google this and see if I
And
can
she's
find
in like
it.
Yankee pajamas.
Yeah.
Like the baseball
They are
team.
both
Not like,
beautiful. They're
I
so
know.
beautiful. And like, I think what I loved most about it was that she was like, this is someone that's like me. I had never met someone like me before, of like same background, same upbringing, same challenges that they faced growing up, but at the top of their game. That like they
Yes.
overcame all of it. That I was
And
like,
exactly that was really sad to me, because it was like this racism had engulfed her. Like she
Yeah.
had been convinced by the racism around her that was why her family was so broken, was
Yeah,
because it was interracial. So when she saw his family exactly like hers in so many racial ways,
yeah,
but the polar opposite every
Yeah.
other way. He was like, wait, this can work? Like,
yeah.
I feel like that was a pivotal moment for her, just in realizing maybe how much, I mean, not that she didn't already realize how much the racism had impacted her, but the way that it had impacted her own thinking about herself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think too, when people have such traumatic childhoods, a lot of the like work in therapy can be giving yourself a childhood even as an adult or adolescence. And I felt like that was kind of that for her too, because she got to be in this situation where she was in a relationship with a man who was 20 years her senior, and so this was like she kind of got to be a kid and have like a fun like fling with someone that was, understood her and passionate, and I'm really happy for them.
I'm really happy for them. I know. And I think what I loved most about it, because like as I was reading it, I was like, okay, obviously this didn't last long, so I was curious to see like
same.
how like how it ended. But it ended still so beautifully, of like we both weren't the same, like, like it just didn't work, but like they still treasured so much that what they had, that it was like, and that's okay, that it was just that like we were together for this amount of time, so that for her, she was like, so I could like basically realize that I am like a free person, like I'm a free woman. And I was like, that's so beautiful that like it came at the right time, and there's no like hard feelings about like ending it or whatever, because they both just accepted that like, no, this is just two ships passing in the night,
Yes.
I was like, I just want to read a day by day document of their relationship. I was so in love with them.
Oh, bless. Starting from before the roof.
I know that whole scene of like kissing in the rain too. It was like, this is so, even if it may not be like completely true, but I'm like, I don't care. She sold me in it. Like this must have been how she felt. So I was like, great, let's do it. Let's go full on.
All good stories deserve a little embellishment.
Let's make a rom-com about that relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
But with a happy ending.
Yeah. Well, they meet in the rain again.
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about her and Nick Cannon, because I knew that they were divorced.
Yes.
But I mean, I was glad that I was grateful that there wasn't a story, I guess. I was grateful that it was like we had two big egos and it didn't work.
Yeah.
There's two things for me. There's one where I wonder if she's not saving some of this for a part 2. Because she
there
really
was so much. Yeah.
It really, like after like 2004, 2005, like it was just like, okay, now we're at the end of the book. So I wonder if she's not saving. But the other part of it is I wonder if she's waiting for her kids to grow up. Because I could see, like, this is a stupid example, but like Kim Kardashian never talks about O.J. Simpson, like out of respect for his kids. This is a really weird example, but
Sure.
But and so I wonder if it's partly that too, is that she doesn't when her children are young, she doesn't want that kind of media attention around what she wants, her kids to have a dad that they, doesn't want to affect the way that they look at him.
Like you said, it was her, it's her consciously choosing, I will not repeat this generational trauma.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, my kids are gonna have the best life they can have.
I know. My God, the luckiest kids ever. She was describing
rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
So cute. So cute. And then, of course, that's the next thing I did was Google these kids because I'd never seen these kids before. And then I was like, Instagram, follow. So now I'm one of her 10 million some odd Instagram followers.
You're in the flock of lambs.
You are a lamb. Oh my God.
I gotta learn some music, I guess.
Catherine just read the book and was like, I'm a lamb. Justice for Glitter. I've never seen the movie, but it's ahead of its time.
Well, I went to Toothsome last night and I was telling, my friends that I went with that I had read this book and that I really liked it. I was like, I actually really loved it. And they were like, what do you mean you didn't know any Mariah Carey songs? No. And they started playing them. I was like, nope.
Nothing.
Nope. And there were a couple that I recognized that I was like, oh, I heard that on the radio once, but I was like, no. And they were like, what do you mean? Like blowing up. They couldn't believe it.
I will say, talking about lambs, she clearly was I feel like this is the first time I've ever heard someone address that, wow, the power of gay Twitter has really changed my career around.
Literally.
Okay, I felt like that was honestly the hottest take of her book was she was like, thank God for social media.
I know.
I was like, when she was like, I wish Princess Diana were around for social media. I was like, I honestly, of everything in that book, I was like, this is the hottest take.
I know.
Because I was like, first of all, not the time to mention her. But second,
Princess Diana is in heaven. Why am I in it? Why am I being brought up?
Keep my name out of your mouth.
My name out of this, girl.
I didn't ask for this. Because I was like, I wonder, if you were to ask Meghan Markle, would she be like, thank God for social media?
Yeah.
I just think that so many celebrities are like, it's poisonous. I can't be on it. And then Mariah Carey was like, love it.
Love it. They're doing the work for me. They love me.
My cult, they're here for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is crazy. I literally wrote that down that it's insane that she said that about Princess Di.
I know. It was already crazy enough that she mentioned her at being at that party, but then when she brought her back up, I was like, okay.
Insane.
Okay.
Well, one of the last things I did want to bring up is she obviously loved and worshiped Marilyn Monroe. And I'm curious to think, I think she illuminated a lot of parallels of her life and Mariah, but of her life and Marilyn's life. But curious to think, is Mariah Carey was she the Marilyn Monroe of that generation?
I don't know if I would go that far.
Yeah.
But I don't want to dishonor the way that she views her journey. You know what I mean?
I think
if that's how you see it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think she's she focused a lot on it. I think obviously when you're a child and you want to idolize, but she's definitely have gone above and beyond what I think Marilyn has achieved in her time.
Well, and I just see them as having separate careers.
Yeah.
I think of Marilyn first and foremost as an actress.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what makes
Mariah never got to be.
Well, she was in Precious.
She got it, yeah, but she was it took forever. Yeah.
I know.
I will say
she's not dead yet.
I know, that's true. I will say Precious is one of her performance in Precious is so good. And the way that I'm glad that she talked about it because I was so curious about how did she kind of get into that role of because it is just The fact that it was supposed to go to Helen Mirren, first of all, I was like, couldn't comprehend that. But
Yeah.
it's such a stripped down performance that I was like, wow, like she is capable. And I think that was the best part, was that she was like, I didn't even know I was capable of just stripping everything down and really being an actor in that moment. And I don't know, I was just very happy for her that she got to experience that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about a couple of the shade moments just really
Yeah.
quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The first one that I loved, I love a continuing gag when she said it was given to a singer whom I don't know. It was actually Jennifer Lopez.
Oh my
Because
God.
that's your famous thing, is that whenever someone asks her about Jennifer Lopez, she's like, I don't know her. And
don't
so
know.
I was like, first of all, obsessed with that.
Yeah.
The divas thing.
Oh my God. And I literally, when we watched it, I was like, my favorite part was her talking to Patti LaBelle after it. And she was like, I'm glad you didn't join that hoedown. But it was so clearly about Celine Dion, but she kept being like, it must have been some, I don't want to disrespect someone else's culture. I'm like, the one French Canadian on the stage.
And it's like, there's literally film of this, Mariah. You don't think we're not all going to go watch it and see who the fuck you're talking about?
I know.
Sorry if this is a family-friendly podcast.
No, it's all right. You're good.
Okay,
she dropped a couple F-bombs. I was like, oh, there's Mariah.
There she is.
There she is.
Well, I liked it.
The other ones?
The one other, this wasn't necessarily shade, but I just didn't like the way that she wrote about it, was the Muhammad Ali thing. That I was like,
that was cringy.
And watching it was pretty insane. Of like,
it was
what
cringy.
is she doing? And like, he didn't know if he was gonna get up or not.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Well, and so I watched the YouTube video of this performance, right? And I was looking at the comments, and many of them are quite old, but there was one that was like, I love how respectful Mariah Carey is. It literally said that. And I was like, in her book, she specifically says, I was accidentally not respectful in this moment. But it was like, when she gives the acknowledgement to his wife, I'm like, that's not the definition and epitome of respect, because she was like, you're sitting here too. Hi. Like, what? Anyway, but that was the comment.
I think those are like, obviously, like the moments that kind of unfortunately defined Mariah, right? But like, even back then, pre-social media, not being able to get full pictures and full grasp of situations, of all we had was just what we saw on TV or in the press or whatever. So it is nice to kind of like get some sort of, not retribution, but like get a fuller picture of like what was actually going on in Mariah's life, like during her like prime, I would say. Yeah, in the 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, I would say, like, final, if you were on Goodreads, and I'm saying this now because I'm copying what Catherine put in her like final notes, but like, what would you rate this, like, stars wise?
I gave her 5 stars.
You gave Mariah five lambs.
I don't even give all my Star
5
Wars
butterflies.
5 stars.
yeah. 5 charms on her charm bracelet.
I did.
4. Give her a 4.
Yeah, I think I gave her a 5 as well. I think just because I think my lamb is showing, where I'm like, I really loved Mariah's music growing up, and her presence, that I was like, I ate this up. Like, I just couldn't stop reading it.
I gave it a 5 for the exact opposite reason, because I went into this book knowing not a damn thing about Mariah Carey. And I was like, this is great. So awesome. I was like, you know what? You won me over. 5 stars.
She did it. And that was The Meaning of Mariah Carey. Okay, so for February, we'd like to choose a new book for Black History Month. We are reading Black Boy Out of Time, a memoir by Hari Ziyad. So let me read you the little descript. An eloquent, restless, and enlightening memoir by one of the most thought-provoking journalists today about growing up Black and queer in America, reuniting with the past, and coming of age their own way. One of 19 children in a blended family, Hari Ziyad was raised by a Hindu Hare Krishna mother and a Muslim father. Through reframing their own coming-of-age story, Ziyad takes readers on a powerful journey of growing up queer and Black in Cleveland, Ohio, and of navigating the equally complex path toward finding their true self in New York City. Exploring childhood, gender, race, and the trust that is built, broken, and repaired through generations, Ziyad investigates what it means to live beyond the limited narratives Black children are given and challenges the irreconcilable binaries that restrict them. Heartwarming and heart-wrenching, radical and reflective, Hari Ziyad's vital memoir is for the outcast, the unheard, the unborn, and the dead. It offers us a new way to think about survival and the necessary disruption of social norms. It looks back in tenderness as well as justified rage, forces us to address where we are now, and, born out of hope, illuminates the possibilities for the future. That is Black Boy Out of Time, a memoir by Hari Ziyad. You can get a copy of that book in the Ampliverse bookshop. If you purchase the book there, it not only helps the Ampliverse, but it also helps a local bookstore in your area. So that's at bookshop.org/shop/the Ampliverse. Thank you so much for watching or listening along to the Ampliverse Book Club. You can find us and follow us on your social media at the Ampliverse on Twitter and on Instagram. And we can keep the conversation going across the Ampliverse by joining the Discord server, linked on the episode. Finally, if you love the show and the others we do here, feel free to tip $1 or $2. You can do that on our Ko-fi, linked on this episode, which helps keep the lights on in our universe. Catherine, Allie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to read this book with you.
Thank you for making me read a book that I never would have read otherwise, and then really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I know. Really I was really glad that we read like a pop culture, pop diva book. Because I feel I would never also just pick this out. So I'm glad that we did. And now I'm so excited, Catherine. You get to deep dive into Mariah Carey's entire career. You're going to hit some bangers. Her first song, Vision of Love, is like my go-to karaoke. That is a belting song.
I heard that for the first time this week, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that was her first song.
I can't wait to watch Glitter. I can't wait.
Oh, no. I'm too scared to watch Glitter. I'm not gonna lie. But maybe... You've
not seen it?
No, I have not.
We should have a watch party.
We should.
For the Patreon.
Justice for Glitter. Yes, for the Patreon. Justice for Glitter. Thank you again for joining us, for joining our book club, and we will see you next month. Until then, read on. Bye.
Discovering voices, building worlds.